So welcome to today's Festival of Learning session, part of our 2025 festival. We're very excited to have you here. My name's Grace, I'm the Head of Programme Delivery at London Funders, and I'm just going to give you a little spiel before I pass over to Superhighways. So this is, I think, our 4th year running this festival, and it's just got bigger and better every year. And really, it's an opportunity for you, our members, to come together, share learning and ideas, and be inspired by others in the funding community and make connections. We have a super packed programme of sessions, over 35, under 8 core themes of collaboration, equity, participation, place, process, systemic change, risk and resilience. So please do head to our website and you can kind of filter through the themes as well on there. Just to notify you that this session is being recorded to help us write up a post-festival report and share learning. If there's anything you don't want to be recorded, just pop myself or my colleague or a message. And we're really encouraging all our speakers and attendees to get involved online, so feel free to share and repost on social media, LinkedIn. And if you can, we get to the discussion part, feel free to keep your camera on. And if you could update your profile name to let us know what organisation you're from as well. It'd be really nice to know who's in the room of our cross-sector membership. And I'll stop there. I hope you enjoy the session. I'll hand over to Kate from Superhighways. Over to you, Kate. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. Lovely to see you all. I'm going to actually hand over to Sorrel to get us kicked off.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. So lovely to have so many of you here today. We've got a sort of fun-packed hour. We would love some participation from you. So we're going to kickstart with a Mentimeter. I'm sure you've all seen one before. I'll queue up when we get there, and also we'll be showing slides and everything afterwards, so you'll get all of that at the end. We will ask you maybe to put input into chat as well, so hopefully you can access chat today. Let us know if you're having any problems with that, but otherwise we will get started for our packed hour. So just bear with me, I'm just going to share a screen and hopefully everybody can see that. Give me a heads up, Kate. Good. Yeah. Brilliant. So thanks for joining us today. We're going to be taking a little bit of an insight look at what basic tech infrastructure looks like at the grassroots. So hearing stories, thinking about some of the challenges that people come to us with and some of the sort of solutions and fixes that can be found for those. And we'll also be asking you some things that maybe you've seen and spotted in your work. And you can see here some of the stuff that we do is just popping up at the bottom there. You may recognise some of those symbols. This is us. I know some of you will know us. Some of you are funding us. But for those of you that don't know, this is a little bit about us. We help small charities and community groups gain essential digital and data skills and backed by the right tech to achieve their goals. And what that looks like in practice is training, advice, tech support, digital inclusion projects, and systems change work around data. We've got a question for you before we start talking about some other issues. So we'd love to know, when tech goes wrong, how do you feel? So when tech goes wrong, this is an open-ended question and it's going to be a Mentimeter. So when tech goes wrong, how do you feel? We're going to find out by going to menti.com. Now, Kate's going to drop the link into chat if she hasn't already done so. Yeah, of course. So you can click on that link and go to that, and I'll move it on to the first question. Otherwise, if you've got your phone close to hand, you can enter the code, and that is 54817540. It will be on the next screen. So there it is again, and you can use the QR code. So I'm just going to give you 10 seconds just to make sure we've got everybody there that wants to be there before I move on to the next question. Is anybody having any problems with that? No. Let's have a look at the next one. Let's have a look at the next one, and we'll see what happens. They come in completely anonymous. Can't track you. When tech goes wrong, how do you feel? These are open text questions. You can say as much or as little as you like. Yeah. I feel I should have done it as a word cloud. Hashtag should have been a word cloud. Yeah, any more for any more. You are also welcome to put things in chat if you can't access the Mentimeter. Yeah, we're seeing frustrated, eek, stuck, and here we go again. Yeah, here we go again. Annoyed, stressed, frustrated. It's really stressful. Yeah, tech going wrong. What can we do about it? My laptop collapsed the other day, and I was working on a phone and on a tablet. We'll get more to that later. Pretty stressful. Yeah, annoyed. Brilliant. Thanks for sharing, everybody. This is really the point of kind of where we start from at Superhighways. Let me just get to the right thing. Bear with me. Is that we're starting to try and unravel that, but remembering it starts there. It's how people feel about that stuff that's also really important to us.
And we saw a lot of that, particularly during the pandemic, and particularly those kind of feelings from smaller organisations working in London. And we set ourselves a bit of a challenge, really. Could we help small charities and community groups so they'd have the digital skills and tech infrastructure they need to run their organisation and amplify their impacts? And we started to think about what devices, software and online tools they can use and how that could all fit together into a simple system that really supported the really important work that they needed to do in their communities. And so the Digital Foundations programme was born. We were very pleased to receive 5-year funding from National Lottery Community Fund. And this is a partnership programme that we're leading on, partnering with the Refugee Council, Here Equality and Human Rights Network and Voice Online Communities KIC. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that programme as we run through this morning. It also relates to another programme that we run that's supporting the same audience, so the same smaller organisations, and helping them better use data to raise the voice of communities and influence change. And that work is funded by Trust for London, and there's a really nice kind of overlap, kind of dovetailing between those two pieces of work, and have really helped us draw lots of insight that we're going to share with you today. And just first, before we kind of dive into some of those stories, we haven't gone for a specific what is grassroots definition, but hopefully we've given you a little bit of a picture on this slide into the kinds of things that we see when we're supporting these small groups. What do those small groups typically struggle with? How do they work? So smaller in terms of funding, this kind of churn, volunteers coming and going, often working from homes, not kind of set up office spaces, and this huge demand from their communities. We have multitasking even whilst we're running training, and often really complex urgent issues that these people and groups are working with.
Yeah, it's really interesting one, Kate, isn't it? I was working with an action group who are, really working on mental health issues, and I was delivering website training, and we were on the phone in the middle of that training trying to prevent somebody from being housed out of London in Nottingham, and they'd slept on the street with their 2 children. So this is the kind of real everyday of our working lives as well.
And what we did at the beginning of the Digital Foundations programme, working with our partners, was bring some of those small groups together and ask about their common challenges, and really built the programme from that. So we ran a number of co-design sessions, and from that we kind of built a list that's guided us and framed the development of that programme. So groups told us they needed planning and choosing appropriate tools, basic tech systems to run a group, data security and best practice, so this very much came from them, visibility, reach and connecting to people, so kind of another key area, supporting their communities. So there was very much this overlap of digital inclusion, exclusion that we saw when we run those programs kind of surfacing with these smaller groups. They needed to know how they could get the resources, including funding, and importantly, how they could continue to adapt to change. So remember, this was coming out of the pandemic, and how they could focus on sustainability too.
So we're going to have a kind of look at these grassroots realities, what that really means for the groups that we're working with. So this is how some people feel about using tech. We asked you, you're frustrated. This is what of our kind of co-design and our sessions with lots of groups, particularly refugee community groups and equalities groups recently. They worry about getting stuck. They're embarrassed if the problems keep others waiting. Panic, we've got real panic, and then avoiding tech altogether because it becomes just too much. And then really nervous about some of the impacts that might have both on themselves and their communities. But of course, there's some positives there too. So it can be a lot of fun. And when you get the chance to kind of test and iterate, that's great. And of course, we're all happy when we're using things regularly, we get into our little comfort zone and things start to kind of settle in a little bit more. And there's a bit more confidence, but still a lot to learn. So over to you. We're going to ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of a small charity who loses its website. So the website was about 10 years old. The original developer Techie has kind of left a bit of a while ago. You can only update some website content, and no one has any details about the site hosting. Not a scooping. What's your plan of action? What would you be thinking about? Any thoughts or reflections? Stick them in chat now. And we'll check in on them as they come in. And it's okay if you don't know. So no such thing as a silly answer.
We've got a, don't know if you can see the chat easily, Sora. We've got to follow the money. Who are you paying for website hosting?
Who are you paying? Yeah. Any others? Thanks, Grace. Yeah. Contact the people that know. We can at least help you find something out. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Any more for any more? Okay, not sorry. We've got one new one coming. Yeah, Ezra, thanks. Yeah, see if anyone has any tech skills in your volunteer base. Yeah, has anybody got any skills that they can use? Can you reach out to other volunteers? Yeah, absolutely. So there are some things you can do, but the challenges are huge.
So yeah, in this example, kind of the not knowing, and I think the key word on this slide is domains. So kind of not understanding what a domain is, where you could look to find out where your domain is registered, and just that kind of that lack of understanding of what that is and how that could help you get started. How the website software could be updated. Are there any site backups? So this kind of not knowing a huge range of things that sit around your website, which actually is quite a complicated thing to have and control and kind of understand fully all the elements of that.
And I think the reality is there are a lot. This isn't a one-off. There's a lot of organisations come to us. My website's gone down. I don't know where my website is. We don't know who owns the website. Somebody's gone. Volunteers set up a website and now they're in another country and nobody knows them anymore. These are really common problems. This is our brilliant Asmarum from Community Reconnection at one of our Bring Your Own Tech Days, where we invite people to bring their devices and have these chats with us in person, where we can fix things and bring our technical, and that's Ezekiel's one of our partners from Refugee Council, having a chat about some of those different devices. But as Mum really kind of pulls out there, you rely on other people to do something, and then you call them, and then it's frustrating, and then you can't change anything. And then they had to transfer not only the website to a new site, but also the emails. And it's really technical language. And that's what Asmram says. He actually couldn't believe, like, the language he learned in that time working with us is quite extraordinary. And who knows this stuff? Well, thankfully, Paul does, and managed to get that done in a couple of meetings. So you can read the full story if you'd like to later. But that's, you know, it's a real problem for groups.
Okay, so I, as a sort of a technical advisor at Superhighways, I frequently get asked about this. I will get contacted and sort of says our website has gone down, we've lost our emails, etc. And it's all just this basic information that organisations need to have. And what we found is that often grassroots information, when they're setting things up, it'll be a friend that sets something up, it'll be a relative, and they're very good and they're technical, but they're not necessarily passing on some of the essential information. And I think the key thing to get from this is that the trustees, the founders, the core part of any grassroots organisation.
Oh, we've lost your sound, Paul, I think. I think you're probably going to say that you need to have somewhere to record all of this key information so you can refer to it, or at least share it with somebody else that's maybe stepping in to help in that scenario.
Yeah, and this kind of it sounds so logical, but when you've passed over your details to anybody with the more technical experience, what you find is people don't register the basics. So the login details, what credit card was used, these are really important financial details. It sounds obvious, but actually it's not if you've handed over that information to somebody who had a bit more technical knowledge a little while ago, or it's a person at the organisation that was working there and then part-time worker, and then they went off somewhere, and then that data didn't get handed over. It's really common. So these are some basics that can really help. And this is just Richmond EAL. You know, they couldn't use their websites. Another group that couldn't use their website, made things really hard for them. And the main lesson they learned was actually, if you can't solve a problem, find an expert and rely on their expertise rather than making endless mistakes. And that's, you know, mistakes are how we learn. It's great. We should be able to make mistakes and move on. But sometimes if we get trapped in that loop of making endless mistakes, going around in circles, we're wasting our time, we're wasting money, we're wasting those for stresses and frustrations on things that could be spent helping the communities that we serve. Here's another one for you. You're a small charity, you're just starting out, and you're providing support to victims of honour-based violence, abuse and forced marriage. Really important topics. Most core data is stored in a mix of personal cloud accounts and on a key volunteer's personal laptop. You know this needs to change. What are you going to do about it? So over to you. What would you think about doing in this situation? We'll get a few answers in chat. Again, don't worry if it's not about being the perfect answers or the right answers, just what would you be thinking about?
Beth might be
Beth's
calling Gavin again.
Beth's calling Gavin. Excellent. Yeah, you might do some research. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't start mapping out where the data is, how do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, starting to think about a CRM or a drive or somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. So there are possibilities here. If you can imagine like how monstrous that would feel to actually try and get that organised, how long it takes. We actually have a 7-step database implementation process with which we've been able to help groups with, in this particular group with as well. But you know, these are big pieces of work.
And probably that drive is the first step, and the CRM would come later. But we see this a lot. This small organisations using personal accounts and devices, they start to grow, they start to deliver more services, but they haven't kind of kept in line with that to step up into more of an organisational setup. And it's not kind of formalising for formality's sake. Often that means that they can then be much more in control of securing and protecting their data, kind of starting to embed that best practice around data protection, cyber security. And I think, yeah, Paul's back. Great,
I'm back.
can
Yes,
have
sorry, I'll try not to crash out of Zoom this time. Yes, so again, we frequently see people where they have an organisation helping them recently put all their data into a single cloud space, and they had personal Microsoft 365 cloud spaces, they had a business one that they bought up, and then they had charity ones, and it was just something to map all of that out and put it into one thing. So yes, definitely we recommend that people would use some form of Microsoft 365 Google Workspace drives to actually organize that. And then the crucial thing is that the accounts are all through organization emails, through your domain emails. Don't let people use personal emails. Frequently we will find people swapping between the two, and it just gets very confusing for them, and they lose data. It's just simple as that. And the other one then essential is making sure that if they're holding confidential data, they are actually encrypting it. It's not enough to just have it on a laptop that's got a password. If your laptop disappears or gets stolen, people can easily access that data if it's not been encrypted. And I think that then boils down to, at the end, everyone in the team, from trustees to your volunteers, must have some cybersecurity training, maybe just half an hour or so. But it's just making sure they're following best practice for their passwords. They're using things like multi-factor authentication to protect important accounts, and they're aware of phishing, because everything these days it starts with a phishing attack to actually sort of compromise accounts, to actually attack them. So just making sure that everyone is sort of trained up to just a basic level on those things.
Okay, another one for you. Let's have a think about this one. You're a very small new kick, wanting to start using Microsoft Forms for data collection. You're on a bit of a learning curve using a new tool, and of course that word frustrating is coming up again. You can't find the responses. Where did they go? Unpicking this highlights you have multiple paid accounts with different email addresses, Microsoft and Gmail. It's a bit of a mess. What are you going to do? I have a feeling somebody's going to pick up the phone to Gavin. Yeah, investing in organisation tech if you can. Yeah, absolutely. Pick a side. Yeah, you've got to kind of go in at it, make some decisions. Or if you're outside of those, those two, wherever you're at, try and really learn it, sit with it. Yeah. Oh, Grace is like, let's do Google. Always going to find, it's a bit like Android and Apple, isn't it? You always come down on one side or another in the end. Yeah, any more for any more? Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And let's remember, groups we're talking about, these are founders, these are small organizations, and you can have multiple layers of these problems, one on top of the other. So let's see what those challenges look like.
Yeah, so again, something that we see a lot, and yeah, we know the next step is to rationalise and merge accounts, but it's actually quite difficult, and people don't necessarily always have the information to hand that we need as well. So they haven't always checked the settings when they've set up these accounts. We have a lot, Paul touched on it, this kind of confusion of where you're logged in, especially if actually it's the account that you're logged into your browser that's affecting whether you can access or not. And another key factor for the example, you'll have noticed this was a community interest company, so not a registered charity. There are more discounts for software or fully donated options where you are a registered charity. Often in the grassroots organisations we're working with, a higher percentage of those organisations are probably not registered charities yet, and it's kind of understanding that there are some other options, and Paul will go on to talk about that a little bit more. What we do find is that organisations also change structure as they grow. So again, something that they're not always aware of, that you can transfer paid accounts to those free or discounted accounts.
So again, yes, with this issue, it's really important to be able to rationalize their accounts. Again, people suggesting Google, it's everyone tends to have, or a lot of people will have a private Google account, and if they're using their own machines, it's making sure that they are logging into the Google Workspace account for the charity and then not in their own personal accounts. And often it comes down to something as simple as change your profile picture for your different accounts, so you clearly see when you're actually logged in on a browser window which account you're logged into. That sort of thing makes a big difference. It's making sure people are aware of all the discounts that they are available to them. You know, it's quite clear for if you're a charity, yes, Google Workspace or Microsoft 365 is probably the choice you make. But if you're not, if you're a CIC or just a grassroots organization, there are some other things you can do with things like Google Workspace Essentials, etc. I've lost the slide in front of me.
But I think Sora might have ducked out. I'll find it. You keep talking.
I can't. The what else? Again, it's a good idea, even if you have to pay, you can quite happily access some of the sort of cloud-based productivity tools quite cheaply. So it's a good idea, because it's not just, it might be, you know, easy to do something free now, but as you grow, you'll probably want to actually, you know, use one of these productivity tools, because free tends to mean it's free cost-wise, but it may take more time to actually use those things. So think about what you're going to be doing when you actually grow your organization. Okay.
We've got two more examples to quickly run through. So this next one is, you're a small charity established 15 years ago. You've managed to exist via short-term project funding and goodwill of lots of people. Your laptops are very old and slow and affect your work. You don't realise that they may also be vulnerable to cyber attack. So again, I'll give you the same format, give you a moment to think, share what you might do next.
Thanks, Kate. I'm back. Don't know how that happened. There we go. Living the tech dream.
I can keep sharing. Any suggestions in chat?
Yeah, I was saying, put a funding brief together to seek some funding. Yeah, so what do you need? Get the specs together. Thanks, Gavin. I can see people will be ringing you again. Yeah, ask current supporters for advice. Yeah, there could be some people that are already looking after you, want to back you.
Let's have a look at our. So yes, working with those old devices is be frustrating. Probably all of those words that you shared earlier. And it's not only kind of frustrating and affecting your day-to-day, but I think the key thing for us as well is the potential security vulnerability as well. A key thing as the team we're looking at sharing information about with groups at the moment is Windows 10 end of life coming up in October 25. So there'll be no more security updates for devices running Windows 10. So an old device may not be able to upgrade to Windows 11. So there are some things that those organizations using those older devices will have to think about. Paul's got some solutions, I think. Oh, it's me. It's me. It's because I'm there we go.
Oh, no.
So it's just really interesting seeing that, you know, this comes a lot. This came in 2 days ago from a local organisation in South London, saying we're very tight on funds. They've only got enough to pay for their projects and their administrator, and everything's just gone at once. It's just the way it is sometimes. Printer's gone, PC's not even opening. So they've got in touch with us to say, is there anybody that can help us? We need to run something, even just a laptop. And as they say, we can't really wait for funding applications, as it will be months before we get a reply. So they've just lost their tech, and now they're just having to run stuff off their phones, whatever they can do to try and make that work.
Yeah, so I think the important thing is make sure that grassroots organisations are including a tech digital budget. Devices don't last forever. Make sure they're planning to actually replace those at some point. There is plenty of hardware available with charity discounts. We'll start to see a flood of that coming onto the market with lots of laptops, etc., that won't run Windows 11. They can be repurposed. We could turn those into sort of Chromebooks, which again would be fine for actually accessing a lot of productivity suites, Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, etc. And again, just make sure that it's to be encouraged these days. People are using a cloud-based solution for all their data, so they're not reliant on data sitting on hard drives and things like that. And the other thing is we run bring your own device days, and people bring in all devices, and we've often found that actually spend £25 on 8 gigs of memory, put that into it, and it works perfectly. So there was definitely looking at going to people to upgrade that technology, etc.
Last one.
We can just squeeze this one in. So you're running a small community group, and you're running it on your phone and the tablet, often on the go. This is the nightmare I had 2 weeks ago. Transferring data from mobile devices to share with others is really hard. I couldn't even create a copy of a Teams file from one location to another. You can only post it into a channel. Who knew until you're on your phone? So yeah, what ideas have we got from if you're running stuff on your phone and the tablet? No one dares say ring Gavin again, so we're slowing down. Thanks, Beth. Yeah, ask current supporters, like, could we set up a drive? Yeah, could we get a drive on the go? Just make sure that we've got somewhere that we can get much stuff. Google works across more devices, online, offline. Yeah. Yeah, great. So it might be your choice of thing that you use, and how you get that set up might help you to make that a bit better.
Yes, and that comes back to what is that simple cloud solution, factoring in the devices that you're going to be using on the whole to access it. Okay, should we go into so yes, there are lots of challenges there when you're running your organization from a phone or tablet. Yeah, often storage space is an issue. Collaborating on the documents isn't necessarily as easy. We have it quite a lot where people from grassroots organisations are attending our training from their phone, and actually that does often mean that they can't fully participate if it's a kind of technical training on Excel, for example. There are some limitations to apps running on your phones, and you may not be able to secure your devices so easily.
And again, we come back to some of that confusion, don't we, Kate, around which account am I logged into, particularly with phones, because you might even have a work profile set up, but switching between them, stuff ends up everywhere. And again, you have this kind of data transfer that happens between accounts. Oh, there's me having a chat with Dr. Hailu Hogos, who works with brilliantly works with helping refugees and young asylum seekers get kind of work shadowing placements and really get to the careers that they want to when they come over here and resettle. So that's yeah, doing some great work there. And we helped him with his phone. This is a phone example. This is Paul working with Tom. Again, kind of looking at actually what's happening with these mobile devices, what's happening with tablets, which is their primary way in which they can interact with people, share videos. Dr. Hiley was uploading to YouTube and it got a bit lost between the accounts and how to do it on his phone successfully.
So again, I think the important things with organisation there is actually just making sure the devices that people are using are actually up to date. We come across this so often. It's frequently with trustees, they've got older devices and they just shouldn't be using those devices to access the sort of the charities data and potentially unsecure, etc. And that these devices are mobile, they get lost, etc. Making sure that people do have a PIN number on them, they do use biometrics to access those devices. As people have said, use something like Google Drive to share and sync across these things. Possibly stopping people downloading information onto those devices. Again, that's a sort of a security risk. And then things like, you know, don't use free Wi-Fi if you're accessing your charity's data. You know, use VPNs and things. They're quite easy to set up if you sort of have a bit of information. And ultimately, consider using, you know, organisation phones rather than making people use their own personal devices for this sort of thing.
Okay, well, thanks for everybody's contributions. We've just quickly whizzed through 5 stories and some challenges, solutions, and top tips from us. Oh, AI hasn't come up at all so far. We know that it's there started to be quite a lot of support for small charity use of AI. We've developed our own sessions. I guess the point that we wanted to raise here today is that, you know, that might be a distraction for some of these smaller groups, taking away from thinking about those basics, because actually it's then even more important that they've got the basics right. Data privacy and governance is key. Yes, there are productivity gains to be had, but, you know, AI needs to be used safely. Grassroots organisations possibly have a part to play in shaping ethical use, and I know the HERE Network, one of our partners in Digital Foundations Programme, are kind of linking grassroots with some research that's being done by the University of Newcastle. So that there's definitely something there. We know there's the charity AI task force. We've kind of fed into some of those other initiatives, but still, as grassroots organisations need that good basic tech infrastructure to kind of underpin any forays into starting to use artificial intelligence in their day-to-day. In the sessions that we run, we ask groups a bit like, we asked you at the beginning of the session how they feel about AI. So here's just quite a mix of emotions that come back.
Okay, quick session with putting answers into chat. So we've given you some examples, but what do you see from the people asking you for funding? What do they ask for for in tech? So what have we missed out in this? And also, what do you see that they don't ask for? You know that they should be asking for funding, or they should have the capabilities to do some basic sort of tech and productivity suites. So what do you see that people, what's missing from what we've told you, and what else do you see that people do ask for, or you think they should be asking for? And anything that we've sort of mentioned, that the problems we see literally daily from sort of small organisation, I think that's a surprise to you. This like that, it's so frequent that people just do not know who registered their domain and who pays for that domain, etc. And that everything, their tech suddenly stops simply because their domain has not been renewed automatically, and they're then scrambling around to work out, well, it was the web designer from last year, he registered it for us, etc. So I think that we've sort of mentioned that it was a surprise to you, the sort of problems that people have. If you want to sort of pop those into chat. I'm glad that someone's mentioned cybersecurity training. I run a session on it, just an hour session. It's 2 o'clock, the first Tuesday of every month. Just an online session, just covering in an hour where to go for more information about cybersecurity, but just what everyone should be doing from the point of view of passwords, what everyone should be aware of from the point of view of phishing, etc. Because it's having everybody in your organisation aware of that stuff that actually keeps you safe. It's that's just as important as all the technical things you can do from the point of view of sort of antivirus and things like that. Yes, Ezra, you mentioned volunteer organisations not having access to laptops. Is that something you see frequently, or is that something you're sort of surprised about? Because we definitely see it, and it's like people do really struggle if they're just using small tablets and phones, etc. Yeah. Mm. Yes, yes. Again, this is the issue that often the people who set up these small organisations and the trustee, they're passionate about their cause and their mission, but they're not necessarily very interested in tech. It's something quite boring for them. It's something that whenever they're involved with it, it's just an annoying thing. But everyone has to be aware of it, and it's so important for their daily work these days. So they have to plan for it.
Gavin's a list lover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think yes, we've got we've shared some templates for the kind of information that organisations should be keeping a list of. I guess it then comes down to who made the list and where is it, and is it shared, and can the can the person that needs it at the time access it. So it kind of
Personal logins and things. It's yes, there's some great password managers out there, things like Bitwarden, which are free open source software, but also nowadays, if it's your device, using a PIN and a biometric to access it, no one else is accessing it, then if you're using sort of modern browsers, Chrome Edge, Safari, etc., the password managers in those are actually considered sort of perfectly adequate for your use these days.
all right. Well, thanks for that that input. We just kind of summarise key things to get right that kind of cropped up in those 5 examples, and that kind of better early tech choices for organisations to think about. I was just going to pick up that includes including digital data and tech costs in funding bids. So we see that doesn't always happen. Investing in learning and kind of investing that time in gaining the confidence in how to get the best out of tech. So I think that's something that we really see a role for ourselves to encourage organisations to access training that's available, but also to come to us to kind of help them with those next steps, and then document. So that's, having somewhere where you're documenting the tech that you're using. So if you leave or if something goes wrong, you're in a better place.
Brilliant. Yeah. And one of the other things that I think Kate mentioned at the beginning is just kind of not, you don't want to over formalize very quickly, but registering a domain is one of the most important things you can do. It's the one where we end up unraveling the greatest problems is through personal accounts. And so the quicker an organization or a group, even a small group, does that and thinks about using those for their emails, and gets themselves kind of learning that language and understanding, the safer they'll be in the long run. How we are helping. So hopefully we're turning this kind of complex stuff into things that are manageable for organisations. So this is just really important, how important this advice is. So this is Camilla at Palewell Press. She set up a website and she said, her husband had died, and he was well, apart from being her heart and soul and her other support, he was also the technical support for a website that he'd built for their publishing company, for their publishing organisation. And as she said, just coming to the training classes, it meant she felt like she was part of a community. It's not just about training on technicals, it's about coming together and being a part of a journey with other people. And as she says, a website is the window of your organisation, and it's supposed to show what you really believe in. So it's important to have these things in your hands to be able to talk about your work. So we partner as part of our Digital Foundations program with Voice Online Communities. It's a free website builder. Hosting's covered, the basic kind of hosting, unless you want a domain name. Lots of resources to help people use it independently without any help from us. However, we do have a kind of Build My Community website training program weekly, 2 hours a week. No technical skills needed. We can turn you from a never used a website to developing your own site within that time. So yeah. Lots of training, clearly, focus quite often on specific technology and applications, but also about making some of those bigger decisions. So whether it's those are some examples there, but, really thinking through options, but also getting to grips with everyday stuff. One of those we've talked about is Bring Your Own Tech Days, and trying to be that IT support that we know IT providers don't pick up on, because it just doesn't bring them any money. I think any IT company loses money hand over fist if they take on these groups or small charities. Yeah. They can book advice with us, and they can book more than once. That's really important. It's not a single thing. You've got a problem and it's not working out, you can come back to us again. And that's really important for them. And as somebody's saying here, it's just really helpful to be able to duck in for bits of advice. You learn a lot from training, but of course then if you get stuck actually putting it into practice, it's really nice to be able to say help, and then to get that ongoing support. Otherwise, there's that word again, frustrating. It's really frustrating if you can't put that into practice and you can't get over that hump.
Okay, so just some of the resources we have. When we're saying these slides, have links to them on our website. But if I just pick on a couple of these, there's a blog post on cybersecurity basics, just covers the sort of information that I would deliver in an hour or so. But there's also, as part of that, there's a Sway, a Microsoft presentation tool that's really good on mobile that you can share with all your colleagues and volunteers, etc. And it's just something they can flick through and just gives them the basics of the sort of things they should be aware of, to ensure that they're sort of following the right sort of cybersecurity protocols, both the organisation and also in their personal lives. But then there's other posts on there about demystifying domains, i.e. what is a domain? Is it my website? Is it email, etc.? No, it's not, and all those different things. And a little article on how, if you've got a sluggish laptop, what are the steps to go through to actually see if you can actually increase the speed of it, make it, give it more space, etc. So lots of resources over on our Superhighways website.
And I guess two others just to draw attention to is one of which is creating a digital tech budget. So we do see that organisations don't necessarily have this. So we've created some guidance and shared spreadsheets that they could use a template for that, and also some information about how to think about funding your digital and tech. So how could you build digital and tech into your core costs or project costs, but also how you could access other pro bono support. Obviously, we are running a digital foundations program in London. There's a limit to our capacity. So the idea is to share these resources more widely, but also share where else people can go in the non-profit tech, digital and data space. We've also got links here to some of the resources that we've developed through the data support programs. So we run regular sessions on using digital tools to help capture and communicate impact, for example. And Sorrel mentioned previously, when organisations kind of grow and it starts to get a little bit too big and messy to use Excel spreadsheets for capturing data about the services they're delivering, and they need to start thinking about stepping up into using database or CRM. We have a useful resource and run sessions to support them through that process, how to choose the best fit for purpose system for them. And as Paul said, when you get these slides, you can click on the links and take a look.
And yeah, we're just in the process of putting together a basic tech guide booklet and blog post for that. We'd actually, when we've got the first draft, we'd be very interested in actually sharing it with you and getting some feedback from yourselves. That would be very useful to us. But basically, the guide is for both charities. If you're a registered charity, these are the places to go to for tech. This is how you can set it up in a nice, simple fashion, etc. Basically, whether or not you go down the Google route or the Microsoft route, etc. But also actually looking at how you can set up that sort of productivity suite with shared drives, etc. If you're not a charity, if you don't have access to that software, there are things you can do with Google, there are things you can do with different hosting providers in terms of actually building a system that incorporates email and shared drives, etc., and an admin control of your emails and different things, through doing things where you're just paying for your domain for £12 a year, etc., and you can do that sort of thing for free. So that will be over the next few weeks. We will have finished that, and so we'd quite like to share that and get some feedback with the initial draft.
And a shout out to Local Trust, because I think they shared a guide that we'd spotted during the pandemic. So it's kind of we were aware of that and wanted to kind of build something a little bit more comprehensive, but kind of pulling together a lot of the resources that we develop and a lot of the challenges and solutions that we're talking to groups about every day. And I think this was just some other things that we wanted to share with you as funders for you to check out, but also to share with other colleagues and with grantees where you might spot something that would be useful for them. Okay, we're bang on time at 11:57. The idea was to quickly move on to how can you help us as funders, and we started to think about what would our asks be. And if you look back at last year's Charity Digital Skills Report, I don't know how many people on the call are aware of that. It's an annual big survey that goes out, and it's a method of kind of tracking digital use within the sector. The 2025 one has closed, and we know colleagues in the sector that are busy analysing, and we will report out next month in July. But in the 2024, there were some 5 calls to action for funders, and I guess what we would like to kind of draw your attention to in terms of this, the space we work and where we see that you can help make a difference is those last 3. So investing in skills development, thinking about how dedicated support and funding for small charities can be offered, and recognise that digital costs are vital core costs. So there's a link when you get the slides, you can click and jump to the full report.
And Grace shared in chat as well, which is
okay,
great.
brilliant.
Thank
Brilliant.
you, Grace.
Yeah. And I think on a previous slide, I might have had a link to that. There's been an early insights blog for the 2025. Really, this recognition that, I mean, their definition of a small charity is under 1 million and a large charity. So they look at that difference between large and small. And obviously today we've been focusing on the kind of micro charities. I'm going to stop in a second, but if you don't know about us, here's a little bit more information. We've shared our theory of change. We've got our contact details on the slide. So thanks for listening, and do stay in touch. And anybody have any questions they want to ask? I think I saw Zene coming off mute. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you for a super presentation. I just wanted to ask, what are your criteria for helping local charitable organisations? Is it purely you're working with those under 100k turnover, or are you a bit more flexible?
We're more flexible. We have a focus with the 2 main funders at the moment to work with that smaller grassroots part of the sector, but we understand that that's quite hard to define. We have a scope around London because we're actually part of Kingston Voluntary Action, and we have Pan-London funding, but we can't work outside of London currently because of the constitution of our parent charity.
Okay. Do you recommend? Are you aware of any other organisation that's working with those that are above that? Because many of the partners we work with are beyond that limit.
Yeah.
And tech and digital is crucial to expansion.
We do work with the groups above that 100k. I think 35% roughly of the organisations we support in a year, which would be, I can't pick that number, around about 300 odd, will be the smaller. But no, we work with those organisations up to 1 million, I would say, is our focus. So small charity definition.
You.
Any other quick questions or comments? I'm not sure if Grace and Aura are going to stop the call dead on 12 or how it works.
If anyone's got any last questions, please chime in.
Thanks, Esri. We'll be really keen to carry on some conversations. And as Paul said, we're kind of pulling this guidebook together over the course of the next few weeks, so we can definitely share back via London funders, but do reach out to us individually if you're interested to get more involved.
Brilliant, thank you, Kate. And I stand testament, London funders has used the support of Superhighways before, and they're just such a brilliant team. So please do share them with all your grantee contacts as well. Thank you, Paul, Kate and Cyril. That's been a really informative session, and thank you to everyone that joined us today. Just to note, we have another 33 sessions to go in our festival, so head over to our website and sign up to the other ones if you have the time. We'll put a link to that in the chat, and just thank you for coming today. And as Kate mentioned, we'll share back out these slides so you can get in contact with Superhighways as well. Thank you all so much for your time, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.